God is very, very explicit. He's very explicit about why evil exists and also how to deal with it. And very much like humans initially react to evil, the angels also reacted to evil when it was presented to them. They reacted in a very similar manner. They saw it. They saw that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to create someone that was going to create a lot of corruption and bloodshed on the earth. And the angels asked him, why are you doing this? And Allah responded, very simply, I know what you do not. Now that seems like a very simple answer, but it's a very profound answer, one that we should really think about, because it has a number of implications. The first of those being that Allah is telling you explicitly that it's not a problem. He's telling you that it's not a problem for him. It's not an issue. I know what you do not. I have it under control. Don't worry about it. That's the first explicit answer. The second one, as he's saying, is that there is a purpose. I know what you do not. I know why I'm doing this. There is a purpose behind that evil. And finally, he's also saying that I know what you do not because I'm the only one who can rectify it. I'm the only one who can solve whatever is in your heart, whatever that problem is. What you think is an issue is not an issue for me, because I will deal with it. Maybe not in the way that you want me to, maybe not immediately, maybe not in the manner that you think is appropriate, but I will. That's why I'm allowing it to exist to begin with. And you would think that that would be sufficient, but many people don't consider it to be sufficient. And I always thought that was really weird. Why? Why do people still feel that atheism is a far more rational position to take than to accept that God is there overseeing everything, despite all the horrible things that we see on a daily basis? Because to me, if you adopt atheism, the problem of evil does not go away. It doesn't suddenly vanish from the face of the earth. You still have evil. The moment that you have rid God, it doesn't, the situations happening in Syria and Iraq and Libya and Yemen, they don't just magically disappear. They're still there. Women are still raped. Children are still starved to death. Innocent men are shot and killed. Horrible things that keep occurring, regardless if God is there or not in your mind. It's still a problem. So what have you solved? The existential angst that an atheist would feel is still there. He still sees evil. Except now that evil, and here's where it becomes worse, that evil is no longer rectified and it no longer has a purpose. You no longer have a God saying, I'm going to deal with it. You no longer have a God saying, it's going to get solved. That woman stays raped. That child stays starved, and that man stays dead and murdered without any justice for all of eternity. That seems a far more depressing standard for the problem of evil than when you bring God into the equation. But then when I bring this up to a lot of atheists, they tell me, well, we can solve the problem because I can make my own meaning and I can make my own purpose for what evil means and how to solve it. And you hear this a lot from atheists. We make our own meaning and our own purpose. And I always found that very curious as well. Really? So you reject religion for being a man-made myth, but you're willing to make more myths? Then why even become an atheist to begin with? If it's all the same, stay a Muslim. Because in the end of the day, it's still a myth, right? Pragmatically, it makes no sense. Economically, it makes no sense in an intellectual standpoint. You still get the same results at the end of the day. You're still making a problem. But of course, as Muslims, we believe these things to be true. But the atheist admits to having to make up his own truth in order to compensate. I find that to be a very weak position to hold. But you know what's even more interesting about the problem of evil? If the problem of evil is actually a problem, then we should hypothesize something. We should hypothesize that those who suffer the most should be the most susceptible to not believing in God. However, we find the opposite. The people in Syria, the people in Iraq, the people in Libya, the people in Yemen, the people in Myanmar still look up to the sky and say, La ilaha illallah, despite the fact that they've lost their families, their homes, that they're refugees, that they're starving. Because that is the only thing that gives them any sort of hope. It gives them any sort of willpower to keep moving forward. You would think that because they are suffering the most, that they would be the first to leave it, but they do not. It is the only thing that keeps them human. And you see, the only people who tend to be complaining about the problem of evil are those individuals who live in relatively luxury homes. In other words, a bunch of fedora tipping trolls who have nothing else to do with their time than complain on Facebook, on the internet, about the problem of evil, problems that they have never experienced themselves. Fascinating. Fascinating problem that you have never dealt with, but others have, and yet they still call out to God. Something to think about.